So welcome to Sales and Cigars. I'm your host, Walter Crosby with Helix Sales Development. Today's guest is it's a marketing conversation that we have, but Chaya Glatt is my guest. She shares a story about how something she turned into that she thought was a big mistake. It turned out to be a huge opportunity for her because to be a little bit more bolder and realize that people truly appreciated the value she provided. And we talk about subject lines in emails. We talk about a structure for writing email campaigns. She's an expert copywriter, marketing strategist. And in the show notes, there's a landing page that has a ton of value for you to think about marketing. And I really don't say that very often. There's a ton of value in here. So if you want some understanding to think a little differently around marketing, go look at Chaya's page. It's in the show notes. Go grab a cocktail, grab a cigar, strap in for another exciting episode of Sales and Cigars. So welcome to Sales and Cigars. I appreciate you taking some time. I know we had this scheduled once before and my internet crashed and you were gracious enough to reschedule with me. So I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for having me.
So, I want to talk about what you do, but I kind of want to give our readers a little sense as to your journey, your entrepreneurial journey. So, I'm kind of interested in if there's a story that you may have or a situation where you thought there was something that was a failure or something that didn't work out and you learned from it and turned it around and had some sort of turned it into a positive. I'm just kind of curious if there's anything like that in your entrepreneurial journey.
Sure. So it's funny because I have not shared this story before.
Oh.
But you put me on the spot and you asked me to share a story. I'm going to tell you this. Let's see what happens. I have an email list of about 700 subscribers at this point. And I have a project manager who's always the one to hit send on my emails or to schedule my emails. And at one point, I was the one to hit send. And I accidentally, because I'm really not the one who's supposed to do that, sent an email that was only supposed to go to 30 people, sent it to my entire list of 700 people. And as soon as I realized that had happened, I thought oh my gosh, disaster, ultimate disaster. Because what I had done was I had sent out an email inviting the recipient of the email to pitch me to speak at an event that I was planning. And I hadn't planned on inviting everyone on my list to pitch me. I had sent this to 30 people who I had thought would want to pitch me to speak. And what turned out to be incredible was that I think that I personally underestimated the power of my own brand in that I thought that only a very limited number of people would want to speak at my event. But what ended up happening was because I sent that email to all of my subscribers, I got some incredible pitches from some very high-level experts who I never would have assumed would be interested in speaking. And because they got that email, which I sent by accident, and they didn't realize that, they actually pitched me on speaking at my event. And I can't name any names right now because this hasn't gone public yet.
Sure.
But I was like, wow, I took a lesson from this about, I guess, number one, that, I don't run the world and there's a higher power. And if I make mistakes, sometimes they're for my own benefit. Mm-hmm. That would be the number one lesson I learned. But I think the number two lesson is people like me and other people who have invested a lot in their brands and in building authority in a genuine way often underestimate their own brands. And they underestimate the respect that they command with their audience. And that was a big takeaway for me. And it made me realize, like, I should really be aiming higher. I should be inviting even higher level speakers to come into my programs. Like, why am I not doing that? And it kind of gave me the courage to then reach out to somebody who I never would have reached out to in the past and ask them to come and speak. So that was a big takeaway for me and really changed the way I think and helped me break out of some of those limiting beliefs that we're all kind of tied down to.
Yeah, we all have limiting beliefs, and it's a great story because you turn as soon as that, I've sent emails out where I push send and then realized, oh crap, I shouldn't have done that, and it doesn't always turn out the way it did for you, right? It opened you up to, the other thing you were doing is assuming that these people wouldn't want to be part of your world and participate. And I think that's something that we all do in all of our roles, right? In life, we assume certain things that somebody else is thinking. And if we just ask the question, sometimes we have to be vulnerable. Sometimes it happens because we made a mistake and we get this big epiphany, which is awesome. But that's a great lesson, and you can move that forward and hold on to that and realize that you are building something that's bigger than you, and that people really want to be part of. It's awesome. So that's a great share, even though it was something you had never shared before. I appreciate you doing that. Is there a particular belief or habit that you've created in the last couple of years that has helped you grow your business and expand, or become more, however we define success? I don't know, that we all define that differently, but is there something that you've tried and started and kept with it as a habit or a particular discipline?
So that's a really
question.
broad question.
Feel free to narrow it in.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'll narrow it into a habit.
Okay.
I have learned that email is such a powerful tool. And I just told a story just now about something that happened when I sent an email by accident. But I actually send emails intentionally all the time. And I've just come to appreciate what a fantastic medium email is, because it's a direct connection with my subscribers. And other mediums like social media are so unpredictable, where the algorithms change, right? And one day you get like an average of 100 reactions to a post, and the next day somehow it's like 19. And you're like, what happened? I'm still
That's
doing.
not just me. That happens to everybody.
It's not just you. It happens to everybody. And it's frustrating because we invest a lot of time and effort into the content that we put out on social media. And when they just like change things up, and all of a sudden the people who used to engage with your content aren't seeing it or engaging with it the way they used to, you kind of feel like the rug was pulled out from under you. And there's a little anger. I don't know about you, but for me, there's a little anger in the mix. We're like, excuse me, LinkedIn, I've been coming here consistently, I've been sharing valuable content, and now you're kind of like changing the rules on me. Resent that a little bit.
Yes.
But what I find
agreed.
with email is that it's a direct connection. Somebody subscribed to get my content. They will keep reading it. If I'm sending them content that they like, they will keep reading it. If they ever don't like it, they will do me the favor and unsubscribe. But I am not subject to the whims of any algorithm. And I can just reach my subscribers directly. And that's a medium that I'm really trying to lean into now.
Well, that kind of, it's a great habit and a great bridge to where I was thinking of going with the conversation, is building a subscriber list where people actually opt in. And because there's so much spam out there, like I have a folder in my inbox where I slide emails into, and my assistant goes and unsubscribes. Right? That I don't even know how I got on a list. Right? They're things that have of no interest to me, and I'm just I think that's something that we as marketers and salespeople we need to be conscious of being, doing bad things, being bad behavior in terms of, just spamming everybody and hoping something works. And I think the world is changing to start to make that difficult. But do you have any sort of high level advice or general advice for the audience to the right way to build a list that is of the right mindset, the right ideal client profile?
So, as somebody who has done this and is in the process of growing my list, my approach is that I'm very determined not to take my subscribers for granted. I don't expect them to just come along for the ride if there's nothing in it for them. And I work hard to make sure that there's something in it for them. So, starting from the top of my funnel, where I offer a set of very high value resources, right, in exchange for their email address, they're then added to my list. They have the option to opt out of emails if they don't want them. I only want you to be here if you want to be here. And then once I start sending emails, first of all, very fun, very entertaining. Every single email is fun to read. You're not going to get an email from me that you're like, why would I ever want to read this? You're going to get an email from me. You're going to be like, what is she going to say today? Right? It's supposed to be edutainment, right? Where it's educational and also entertaining. And in my emails, there's always going to be value before I ask you for anything in return. So absolutely, I have a list and I am going to monetize it. I'm not doing this for fun. I have stuff to sell and I'm going to try to sell it to my list.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you never buy anything from me, you'll get a tremendous amount from my emails. And I think that's the way it should be. And I think that's the only way you can do email marketing now. Because like you said, everybody gets plenty of spam. Nobody needs more spam.
Well, you make a point that it should be fun. There should be some value, and the content should have that. Like, what is she going to send? Right? They're going to lean into it. They're excited and anticipating this. So, for those of us who are not marketers or creative types, we know I think most of us understand who our ideal client is, what they represent, what they like. And if we haven't gotten that far with our marketing, then we probably should go back and start over. But how does somebody who's not terribly creative and has value make it that, using your word, fun? How do we get there?
Okay. So first of all, not every email strategy is going to include fun content. Sometimes that doesn't need to be a part of it. The key is not necessarily that it should be fun for the reader, but that it should be valuable for the reader. And if your reader values fun and you know how to do fun, then that could be a strategy for you. Okay? Not everybody is that fun type, right? Mm-hmm. Some people don't want to write fun emails, but they still want their emails to be read. So let's switch out fun and put in interesting, right? Okay. It should be interesting. It should be intriguing. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. The key is just to make it relevant to the reader. So, for example, sending an email where you tell a story, okay? Stories are intriguing. Human beings are wired to enjoy, appreciate, and remember stories. We connect with you as a human being because we've heard a story from you. Just now you asked me about a story about a failure that I had and what I learned from it. That's probably the part that most people are going to remember from this entire interview because people like stories. So if you can tell a story in an email, great. If you can present a solution or an insight into a problem that your readers are likely to be experiencing. So if you're a mental health provider, and you know that a lot of your subscribers are struggling with self-esteem, talk about somebody and what happens when they're struggling with self-esteem. Tell a story about how they will not take a risk because of it. Paint a picture of how, because Joe was struggling with self-esteem, he didn't try out for the basketball team. And because he didn't try out for the basketball team, he never had the opportunity to join the basketball team. And then tell a story of what would have happened if Joe had tried out for the basketball team and if he had made the team, and all the things that would have happened and enriched his life, and the new relationships he would have and the new skills he would have. And then circle back and say, well, none of that is going to happen because Joe didn't even try out for the team. And then talk about how you help people who are struggling with that situation. So you see how you kind of made a pitch, but you did it in a story. So that's another way to keep it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that is a thread that we see if we read about marketing and understand it from professionals. Stories have always been, I mean, it's how we communicated before there was a written language. Even with pictures, you could tell a story, but it is memorable, and it doesn't need to be a long, drawn out story, but we need to be able to flip that story to come back to what it is that our offer is, and give them some sort of direction or call to action, or however we end that. But it's sort of tying that loop back together. Is that the right way to think about that?
Exactly. Before you sit down to write an email to your subscribers, before you write a single word, you want to have like a rough plan of how this email will fit into your overall strategy. So I actually have a document that I use to plan my emails, but it goes something like this. It's a table, right? So the first column will say something like, what is the goal of this email? And that might be, get somebody to click on a sales page, or it might just be nurture my list so they find me more likable. It might be build authority with my list so they start seeing me as more of an expert. It could be anything, right?
Sure.
But you set a goal for the email, okay? In the next column, you put a rough outline of what is your content that's going to achieve this goal. So if I said I want to make myself more likable to my subscribers, my content column will then be, I'm going to tell a story about how I messed up grandly and what happened as a result. Okay. Third column will be your send date, right? Because you want to make a plan of when I'm sending this. And then you want to have a column where you're planning your call to action. So as a result of reading this email, what do I want my subscribers to do? And sometimes that can be click on a sales page. It can be schedule a meeting with me. It can be something as simple as reply to this email and tell me your own story. Because when your email subscribers reply to you, you're building a relationship with them. And that really is the goal of having an email list, is having those actual real relationships with your subscribers. So when you're planning your emails, sometimes if we say something like, tell a story, you kind of get like down a rabbit hole where you go, well, now I'm telling a story and I don't even know why I'm telling it anymore, right? So you want to kind of plan that strategically. Okay, I'm going to tell the story, and then the goal is to get them to take this specific action.
Those are great insights for anybody that's just trying to write an email that's, not necessarily part of a campaign, but just a one-off email. Put some thought into it with those columns of that structure, and thinking about what we're looking to do. The part that's, I think a lot of the emails I see that come to me, it's all about them, the writer, not about me, the reader. And the ones that I engage with are the ones that, sort of telling me a story that, like, oh yeah, that's relatable. That's similar to something I've gone through. And I think that really, is it fair to say that it's hard to do that as a marketer if you don't truly understand who your target is? And
Absolutely. Yeah. You need to know your reader. you need to know what they're thinking about and what they would get excited about. Like, okay, here's a free resource on, brand voice. I know my subscribers are excited about a free resource on brand voice because many of them are copywriters and marketers, or they're doing it themselves with their own marketing and they're trying to figure out their brand voice. So that's something they'd be excited about. If I would tell them, here's a free resource on what to say in a podcast interview, I'm not sure how many of them would be like, oh yeah, let me grab that, because I'm not sure how many of my subscribers are interested in getting on podcast interviews or knowing what to say. Like, it would kind of be like, woo, I don't
Right.
need that. I don't want that. So yeah, it's really important to know what your subscribers care about, what they want to hear about, what they would consider valuable. And really important not to talk down to them or treat them with less respect than they deserve.
Yeah, that's I do see that. I do see that like sort of disrespectful tone. And I know there's really no tone in an email other than what I bring to it, but the words that they use sometimes just rub me the wrong way, and that's immediate turnoff to hitting the delete button, and that's so easy to do anyway. So, do you have any tips for, because the subject line is an important piece too, right? If we're trying to
Yeah,
get somebody's attention,
right.
is that something that is tied to the story, or is that a question we ask? Is there any good rule of thumb there that would be helpful? Hey, thanks for being part of Sales and Cigars. I wanted to share a new project that we just launched. I wrote a new book called Scale Your Sales. It's written for the CEO. It's a short, powerful book that explains the 7 critical mistakes that CEOs make with their sales organization. It provides actionable steps that you can take to fix those problems in your business today. And it might even help you get out of the sales seat yourself. So, appreciate you listening to Sales and Cigars. You can find this book on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Thanks.
So I love writing subject lines. It's one of my favorite, playfulness parts of an email. And I often get responses to my emails with feedback on my subject lines. Some people will reply to my email just saying, I love the subject line. Like, that's all they have to say. So you got to mix it up when it comes to subject lines. Don't become too predictable, right? So there are many different kinds of good subject lines, and then you want to mix them up and not use the same kind every time. So one good subject line would be to simply give a preview to what you're going to be talking about in this email. So if in this email I'm going to give you 3 tips for writing tighter, then my subject line can just be 3 tips for writing tighter. That's it. That would be a good subject line. Another good subject line is opening a curiosity loop. So that means saying something that does not tell you what's exactly in this email, but just makes you curious, like, okay, what is she going to say, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a curiosity loop subject line would be something like, I wrote much too wordy, and then this happened, right? It's the same email with the 3 tips for writing tighter.
But that's like a little story too, right? In and of itself.
It is. It is. But it doesn't tell you what happened. So it's a curiosity loop, right?
Yep.
Okay. That would be another good kind of subject line. What else would be a good subject line? I'm trying to think. Curiosity loop, the preview, personalization, right? So with most email service providers, you can put the recipient's name into the subject line.
Mm-hmm.
So you can ask a question, right? If you were getting the email, Walter, it would say something like, Walter, would you like to learn how to write tighter? Okay. So that is both personalization and also giving you a preview of what the email will be about. And it's fun because you can do it all different ways.
So, those are three simple to execute, and you can be creative. You can you can be authentic with coming from your voice as the writer, And I think a really good tip there is mixing it up so you don't become predictable, um, and you're keeping people on their toes, so to speak. Um, that's some really good, really solid tips and advice for our audience who are, many of them struggle with marketing concepts, the tactics. I mean, the strategy is another piece of it. So let's talk a little bit about what you do. So somebody heard you say something, really smart about the outline, they're those were great tips on the subject line, and it's like, I want to get more. So who's that to self-identify? Who's typically your customer, the people that you add value to and you enjoy working with?
Okay, so in my work, I mostly work with B2B brands. Um, these are brands that are typically excellent at what they do and also typically get most of their leads to date by word of mouth. And now they are ready to start marketing. The only problem is they don't know much about marketing. They're experts at what they do. They have an incredible team that they've put together and have years of experience and many, many satisfied clients, but they don't know how to market or what to do or what they should put on their website. They know they need a website. They don't know what to put on it. They don't know how to explain the complex services that they offer. So they will reach out to me, and that's typically the best fit client for me. And I take them through the process of what it takes to market. That means getting to understand their target audience based on what they already know from all of their existing clients. I talk to their target audience. I interview some of their clients that they've worked with because that gives me the meaty detail and the voice of the customer that I need in order to market.
The
I
language.
the language exactly, and some incredible case studies. So I'll get really compelling stats or anecdotal information that shows, this client went from doing everything themselves to having a fully automated system, right? Telling a story of what happened instead of saying, we do automation, right?
Right.
So, like, again, bringing in the power of storytelling in the form of case studies. And then I write my client's web copy. So I will give them the wireframes and all the copy, which is the words that go on the page, for a very, very compelling website that clearly communicates what they do, presents them as a very powerful, authoritative brand, and includes all those conversion strategies like using evidence to back up their claims, having, strategic call to action buttons on the page so that they have everything that they need in order to start marketing. And then I'll work with them on the rest of the funnel as well. So if having a lead magnet and an email sequence is part of their strategy, I'll work with them on that as well.
So you're helping them from the strategic point of view, the strategy, and understanding what they are. You help them with the words that are going to engage um, their likely customers, the prospects that they're trying to persuade to look at a little further at their operation, their company, and then you can help them with the tactics as well, with the email campaigns and
Yes.
ads and things like that. Where do you like to stay within that? Email campaigns all the way to ads, or?
Yes. So I will typically work with the client on the full gamut. If they need a specialist in a specific area, like they're doing Facebook ads, then we'll delegate that to somebody who's a specialist in that area. But anything that's email, copy, any parts of the funnel that need to have their brand messaging on, I will typically be the writer for that.
And you're giving them some guidance on those ads to make sure that they are holding true to the brand and to the strategy, I would assume.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we start the project, we write a brand strategy brief, which is a Google Slides deck that can be up to 100 pages sometimes because it includes like everything that you need to know to make decisions about how to market this brand, from the audience segments to the problem solution stories to the case studies, to the brand voice. Everything's in there. It's like the Bible for the brand. So
sort
when
of
we're
like
making decisions,
the colors, the whole what the logo represents, what the brand represents, everything with detail. What I sort of I've seen some of those, and I've talked to other folks, and they have a similar story, right? They're robust documents because they become a reference document. And I was talking to a writer for a television program, and they have I think there's a parallel here. They'll have a character on a show, and before they write for that character, there's 3 or 4 binders of backstory about that individual. Like their whole life is in these books, and it becomes like if you don't know what's in the book, you can't write for the character. But
wow.
it's their reference piece, and I think there's a parallel there to if you don't have a really strong reference point for your brand, you're going to go in a lot of different directions and you'll get lost.
I love that analogy. That is so powerful and so true. That's
And,
exactly what this is.
and some of the details in the screenwriting thing that it doesn't always come out in the show, um, but it does to the writing team because they know that they have that point of view because of this thing that happened to them in the past. It's an interesting piece. It's a little off topic, but I thought it was interesting and it was parallel. So, is there? We're going to have your website and your LinkedIn and things in the show notes, but we had talked about we'll have a link in there. Can you share with the audience, the link that we're sharing to help them, that value that you're offering? Can you kind of expand a little bit up on that page?
Sure, absolutely. So I have a bunch of freebies that I offer. You can get them from this page, which you'll find in the description. One is an ebook. It's called 15 Brands to Love, Loathe, and Learn From. And it's full of just cool examples that you can look at and get inspiration. And I explain exactly what these 15 brands are doing and why they're doing it. And then there's takeaways for you for things that you can do with your brand. There's another ebook. Mm-hmm.
Well, I pulled it up as we're talking here, and because I want you to finish the story, but I just want to add that it's really robust. There's a ton of value here for people to educate themselves and really start to understand that what they're missing. So I interrupted. Your second ebook is in there.
Sure.
Copy.
Thank you. And thanks for adding that. I appreciate it. The second ebook is about copywriting. So if you're brand new to writing copy and you're like, I don't even know where to start, this will tell you exactly where to start. And it includes like a really helpful worksheet that you can just go through to plan your copy. I also have a free video series called Get Paid to Think. This is specifically for marketers who are more experienced and they find themselves giving a lot of advice for free and you want to start charging for your consultations. This video series will show you how to do that. And one more video masterclass specifically for designers. So if you're a designer, you design logos, you design ads, you design websites, whatever it is that you do, and you want to start doing it more strategically, this is a masterclass that will show you how to do that.
Wow. I mean, there's 2 more here. There's a video series on brand name brilliance.
Yep. So that one is not free. It's a paid video series. It's on how to develop a brand name. You can buy that for $27. And the other one is a course on brand archetypes, which is a crash course, also not free. And it's on how to use the psychology of archetypes in your marketing.
And I think that's a huge part of when you do a brand document, that archetype is an essential way to describe and figure out how you stay on point with a brand going forward. And those are interesting. I've experienced that with my own brand, and I've experienced it with other companies and sitting in and watching somebody talk through it. And yeah, I think the example, I don't remember the particular archetypes, but it always sticks out of my mind that Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts both sell coffee, but they have a completely different archetype. They have a completely different audience. They have a completely different way to market, but they're still selling a cup of coffee. But I think that really is a really good differentiator between good marketing and bad marketing, is that they're selling the same thing, and one's selling it for $5 a cup and the other one's selling it for $2. And it's effectively the same coffee. No matter how you brew it, it's still coffee.
Absolutely. You nailed it.
So I think we'll have this resource page. I mean, it could take somebody weeks to go through the value here, and I mean, you've got it packed in. So I love that. I appreciate sharing that. Well, that'll be in the show notes for people to look. What's the best way? Like you said some things that really get people excited. What's the best way for them to reach out to you beyond this resource page?
You can reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me through my website. You can just email me. I read all my emails. My email is chaya@chayaglatt.com. Chaya is Chaya. Just send me an email. I will read it.
Awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time and rescheduling this podcast. I'm looking forward to getting some feedback from the listeners about how much value you delivered. So thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being part of another fun episode of Sales and Cigars. Let me ask you a question. Are you tired of struggling to hire sales talent that's going to move the needle for your company? Well, maybe you should attend my Sales Hiring Secrets program and discover the number one mistake that business owners are making with hiring sales talent in their organization. The details are in the show notes. Click on the page. It gives you all the details. It gives you everything you need to know to solve the problem of sales talent on your team. Thanks.